Unfiltered opinions.
Introduce me.
Sometimes you have ideas and you're not quite sure why.
As you secure the bag.
Sometimes you meet people and realize there's probably a reason why you stayed in touch.
Just listen.
Sometimes all the pieces just come together by themselves.
I'm Jimmy Moyaha.
And I'm Simon Brown.
Welcome to Insider Exchange.
In our deep dive this week, we take a look at bracket creep or tax drag. It's got many, many names, but it effectively means you earn less. Right? Shocking. Can't believe it.
Pay more tax.
Pay more tax. So the budget speech finally took place this last Wednesday. And in the budget speech, there was a very interesting statement made by the Minister of Finance, Enoch Godongwana, saying that there will be no adjustments to the tax brackets, but at the same time saying we are not imposing any addition. Actually, no. Let me find you the exact wording for that. Sorry, guys, I'm going to stop because I want to quote it. I have a copy of the exact words that were said by the finance minister because I, for one, don't like misquoting people. I think that's just unfair. In the 2025 budget speech, the minister says, and I quote, "Government also proposes no inflationary adjustments to personal income tax brackets, rebates, and medical tax credits." Right? Now, the minister also then goes on to say, and I quote once again, "We are aware of the fact that a lower overall burden of tax can help to increase investment and job creation and also unlock household spending power." Now, for a minister to imply a lower tax burden as a result of not increasing the tax brackets is a very interesting conversation. And this is the deep dive that we're getting into. This is the tax drag, or what we know as bracket creep. Effectively, in simple terms, it is when the tax brackets do not keep up with inflation.
Yeah.
Inflation happens every year.
Yeah.
It increases. Whether we like it or not, it is there. And for some people, alongside inflation, you might get a salary increase. For some people, you don't get a salary increase. And we'll get to the salary increase second portion of it in a moment. But effectively, when your tax bracket does not keep up, even if you earn the same amount of money, you effectively earn less, because you effectively pay more tax, whether you like it or not. And we'll give you a simple example. So we'll take the example where someone does happen to earn an increase, and we'll take an example where someone perhaps does not earn an increase, right? Let's start with the example where someone does earn an increase. Let's say you earn 360,000 Rand per annum. Round figure, cool, great.
30K a month.
30,000 a month. You are probably going to pay around 57,000, just under 58,000 in taxes, right? When you've paid that, your effective tax rate sits at around 16%, so 15.9 odd percent, right? Assume you get a 5% increase for the next year and a 5% increase for the year after that. The first 5% increase takes your salary up to 378,000, and the tax you would then pay on that without the brackets adjusting is now 62,000 instead of, say, 57,000. So instead of 57.5, you're at 62.5. Effectively, you're paying an additional. So your new effective tax rate rather is 16.55%. So now you've gone up in terms of the effective amount of tax you've paid just for earning that increase because the tax brackets weren't adjusted. I'll leave it there. You get the idea.
You have less money in your pocket and there's more money at SARS.
There we go. Whether you are paying more money or not, here's the other caveat to that. What happens when your salary increase throws you into an entirely different tax bracket?
So, I mean, and here we're not even talking about that. So it depends. I mean, it's the way it works, right? So the way the tax works is, and I haven't got the exact numbers here, but let's say it's up to 270,000. So you pay X amount Rand value up to 270 and then a percentage above. anything above that. And then you hit the next bracket, and then you pay that base and a percentage above.
Absolutely.
So if it pushes you into a bracket, it's not that your entire tax suddenly goes up, but all that new money does go up. So if that pushes you through a bracket, let's say you got a promotion, and from 360 you went to, I don't know, 420, you got a big increase because of the promotion, well then, sorry for you, you're just going to pay a lot more tax because of it.
You could effectively end up not enjoying any of your bonus because you could effectively end up paying more tax. So let's say you were
It wouldn't take it all. I mean,
it would take most of it such that it doesn't make sense, because if you're at the ceiling of one bracket to then move up into a bracket and be at the base of that other bracket, you're effectively, one, paying more in the residual side of it, but sometimes on the first portion of the tax as well, that goes up as well. So you could find yourself earning pretty much the same that you were earning prior to the increase, and then does that make it worth it?
Sure, but it's not going to. Our highest tax bracket is 45, so you're never gonna get less than half of what your increase is.
Fair.
I mean, does it make it worth it? I mean, I don't know. I mean, we were talking earlier about how much money do you need. I think for the average person watching this show, more money is good. When you some shabalala, less so. But for you and I,
For the average South African out there.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, so it you're effectively paying 26, 31, 36, 39, 41, or 45. You were paying 41, it pushes into a new bracket, you're only paying 45, it's not the end. It's a big number.
Okay, so I've got the brackets, right?
Yeah.
So let's go with that 360 example once again.
Yeah.
From the 360 example, you would have been paying 26% on anything above the 237,000 Rand that you would have been earning. This is according to SARS, by the way. We're not making up these numbers. This is on the SARS official website. If you then get bumped up to 378, you effectively are now in a new tax bracket where you are no longer being taxed 26% of income above 237,000, you are now being taxed 31% of income above 370,000. Now, granted, your income above 370,000 might not be that much. It might be only that 8,000 excess there. But your base tax, being the amount prior to that, was 42,678 at that first bracket, is now 77,362. Right, so that is call it a 35,000 Rand difference in tax, right? Over 3,000 Rand more tax per month over 12 months, effectively, is what you are then paying, just on the basis that you've been moved into a new tax bracket. So yes, you will see 18,000 Rand more in salary. You will pay 3,000 Rand more in tax on that. You will also then pay 31%, so an additional 5% on the excess between the 378 and the 370, so the additional 8,000. So yes, you do still earn the money, but if we simply adjusted for the tax brackets to avoid bracket creep and said we're adjusting the tax brackets by inflation, then your 5% salary increase, if an inflation adjusted increase is a 5% increase, leaves you in the same bracket.
In the same place. And if we go back to what we were doing in the aughts, where what he did was he actually adjusted them more than inflation. So you paid less tax, put money into people's pockets. It's a very sneaky way of taking money out of people's pockets.
Yes, because this particular adjustment or non-adjustment will cost South African taxpayers around 18 billion Rand in revenues that the SARS the receiver of revenue will now get. Right now, SARS is going to collect tax no matter what. That's their job. That's why they exist as an organization. But for the government to say we are not going to impact your personal tax lives and then to do exactly that kind of seems unfair.
Yeah, 100%, and misleading.
And this is the second year in a row they've done it.
Yeah.
They did it last
year too, as well.
budget as well.
Yeah. And sometimes what they do is inflation's, 3%, so they only change it by 1. So they a bitty creep. But the last 2 years has been, and to be clear, this year inflation is low. Last year, inflation not so low.
Exactly. And so...
and I doubt we also, the years when our inflation was up at the 7s, I doubt we got 7% bracket changes.
We didn't.
We're being squeezed.
So we'd always been squeezed for the longest time. And that then begs the question around when we look at this bracket creep, you can't get around it, can you? No. There's no way to get around it. There's no way to say to an employer, hey, employer, I kind of don't want more money. Everybody needs more money. We need more bills to pay. So I will take the adjusted increase.
Because there's no way, because any way that they give you money is then perks and you get taxed on it.
You get taxed on that anyway.
They give you a
benefits,
car,
yeah.
you get, they give you a car,
Allowances,
you get taxed
all
on
of those
allowances.
things.
All they can do is make the quality of snacks at the office better.
Ooh.
Upgrade the snacks.
Get Woolly snacks in the office.
Yeah, Woolies, no pick and pay snacks. Woolies snacks, Chuckles.
Chuckles. I don't know, right? That would, I suppose that would
It's a
make
lot of
people...
Chuckles you got to eat.
It's a lot of chuckles you got to eat to make up for the salary increase that you declined because it would cost you more in tax. But South Africans, by and large, don't have the luxury of a choice. We don't have the luxury of sitting back and saying, I will forego this tax increase. We all look forward to bonus season. For those that still get bonuses, Si and I don't get bonuses. We pay ourselves a bonus, and for now, it's going to fit inside this cup. See, there we go. There's the bonus for the last year. But yeah, for those that are formally and properly employed, you can't get away from this, and you have to sort of kind of stomach it and live with it.
And that's why it's such a evil and ingenious plan by finance ministers the world over. It's like that bad oak in the Bond movies. It's that.
Every Bond villain in every Bond movie. You know, there's 50 movies, right?
Yeah, but they start life as a finance minister, and then they become an evil villain in the Bond movie.
Okay, there we go. If you're looking for a career path switch in your life, consider being a Bond villain. Apparently, it pays really well.
Sure.
Or be a CEO of a bank, depending on which bank that is.
Yeah.
But yeah, from a bracket creep perspective, I mean, it's very difficult to sit back and say that this is not something that bothers South Africans. I think it's something that's not discussed and not spoken about because because the number's not there. You almost think it doesn't happen. You almost put it out of your mind. Because the numbers are not physically written down, you almost are like, oh no, but you forget. Or maybe that's the plan, is to make South Africans forget that this has got an impact on your life. But it does. It has a material and financial impact.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. It hurts is the short answer. And it comes back to the whole budget, which was the budget take one, which never happened, and then we've all read the speech and seen the documents, and the thought around it was we're in a crisis, and this budget is just plodding along. And frankly, take two was no better.
Take two was no better because we didn't alleviate the crisis. No. We just deferred some of the crisis pain to another point in time. Yeah. And we basically just still said to the South African out there, it is still your problem to carry excessive government expenditure on your shoulders.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Well, we apologize, South Africans, for the bracket creep, for the tax drag that has been imposed on you and on all of us by the government of South Africa. Unfortunately, there's nothing you and I can do about it at this point in time, at least for the next year. That is going to be in effect. And if next year we do get an inflationary adjusted increase to the tax brackets, I can guarantee you it won't be backdated to include the last 2 years. We're going to leave the deep dive on that note. We're going to get straight into our investor insights, and we're going to be taking a look at some surprises in investor insights. We're going to be looking at new record highs on some markets, and we're going to look at companies that are finally doing what they said they would do. Stick around for investor insights. Si knows exactly what I'm talking about with that. Until next time, that's the deep dive. And we wrap things up with investor insights this week. We are taking a look at the gold price reaching all-time highs, clocking above $3,000 a fine ounce. We're taking a look at the favor that is being found once again in European stocks. We've had this on our show as well. We're taking a look at Renogen. They've come out of the woodworks to give us some good news as well. So we have quite a few things to dig into, but I suppose let's perhaps start with EU Telsat.
Yeah, so I was listening to a podcast, and I mean, we appreciate the meltdown at Tesla, which is, well, no, look.
Gotta love a good meltdown.
In part, the meltdown is because...
Self-imposed, say it.
Yeah, but no, look, some of it is they haven't had a refresh in a long, long time. And there is apparently, I think the Model Y or one of them is getting a refresh this year. If you speak to car nerds, I'm not one, they'll tell you that thing just looks old. Okay, fair enough. So what you need then is that. But the next one is self-imposed. I mean, it was what was it? 7 years ago, Tesla was the top LGBTQI stock to work for in America or California or something, because that was your demographic. Unfortunately, when you pivot your demographic to Nazis, there's just not many of them. So sales in Germany are down 74%. Sales in France are down 60%. I mean, it turns out there's more Nazis than you thought, but nonetheless. There's an absolute collapse there. Now, that's Tesla, and they did an infomercial at the White House, which was quite
in a
cringy.
red Tesla, I saw that. Yeah.
It was quite ugly. But anyway, be that as it may. But now we're starting to see, so that's directly Elon and Tesla and Doge and Trump and his going into politics. And speak to any CEO anywhere in the world and they will tell you, keep your politics out of business. Because you're going to upset half your customers. Don't do it. Anyway, but then I started to think to myself, but what about the Starlink fallout? Now, not so much sending rockets, because there's not many who can do it. In fact, it's only them, and NASA tries, Boeing tries, Blue Origin.
No one else is
tries.
really interested in living on Mars at this point. I don't think.
Just general rockets into space. There's not much else happening there. But the Starlink is the biggie. So I went looking for there are alternatives, and there are alternatives, and they are what's the word? They are sort of snapping at heels. I mean, we've had one of the government departments in Canada cancel a Starlink. Now they're going to want options. There is Blue Origin has one, but it's very small. What you find is that they're mostly more regional, whereas Starlink really is pretty much the planet.
You say Canada cancelling Starlink, and again, this speaks to the self-imposed side of it, right? There was a very interesting tweet or post on X, right, on the platform owned by the owner of Starlink and Tesla and X, right? On the platform, conspiracy theorists puts out a statement saying that one of the businessmen invested in the New York Times, one of the Mexican businessmen invested in the New York Times, worth around $70 billion US.
Carlos Slim.
I think so.
Carlos Slim.
That gentleman is apparently linked to Mexican drug cartels. So someone puts this up on X. Following that, the owner of X retweets this post, and Carlos decides, you know what? I'm going to approach this from a diplomatic Cyril Ramaphosa perspective and cancels $20 billion worth of Starlink contracts because you implied that may or may not be linked to this. And as you said, what's business and politics? Keep those things far apart. Now, whether or not Carlos Sim is involved in the Mexican drug cartels, we don't know. We don't live in Mexico. But for you to imply that what anyone says is just the truth because you are now in the position that you're in, and I think this is something that Elon needs to be aware of, is you
with
are
power
now...
comes responsibility.
Yes, with Uncle Ben said it best, with great power comes great responsibility.
And it's responsibility because he wears so many hats.
Yes.
Some of those responsibilities are to shareholders of Tesla and
to shareholders
SpaceX
of X.
and et cetera, et
We
cetera.
forget that from an X perspective, you didn't actually buy X. You put up collateral in the form of your Tesla shares. And if your Tesla shares start to tank, and Tesla's, by the way, interestingly enough,
Margin calls.
between the Trump inauguration and now, Tesla shares are down more than 40%. So if you start to get margin called on your Tesla stock, what happens to your ownership of the X platform? Now, obviously, we might be quite a way away from that, a couple of billion away from that. But for you to break the Guinness World Record of the most amount of net worth lost by a single individual in a lifetime at $120 billion US, clearly means you've upset some people at some point or another. And you should also take that into account as a business person, never mind from a political point of view, unless you've got aspirations of one day being the president of the United States, then I suppose, each to their own.
But this is, so then I went and I dug around this EU Telsat.
We digress.
Sorry, we digress. But I dig around this EU Telsat. I just can't get excited about it, man. I don't. So I mean, firstly, I go and look at analysts' expectations. Now, analyst consensus, right? You know what these are always like. Everyone's like, buy, strong buy. There might be some hold. This has 2 strong sells, 2 sells, and 4 holds. I've never seen that before.
There's no buy at all.
There's no buys. There's no strong buys. They don't seem to be making any money. They make a little bit of money, but not a lot. Revenues only. So for the current last 12 months, revenues 1.2 billion euros. Market cap's 2.8 billion. I thought I had ourselves a really exciting little business, and then I dug around and I'm like,
not so much. Which is interesting because
it trades at a discount to price to book, and maybe it's because everyone looked at it and said, "Guys, you can't beat Starlink."
Yes,
and
but now everybody's saying we need an alternative.
Because to be clear, when you look at the price graph, I mean, it's 1 month move is 325%. Year to date, it's up 160.
Interestingly enough, when I look at the wall that we had Tesla already in an alternative space, because we had said we like alternatives like BYD and all of that. And I'm thinking for our international wall at this point, we perhaps then add EU Telsat as something we could potentially like. And we also then add Starlink as an alternative or as an avoid, because I don't want to be exposed to a business. Oh, well, to be fair, Starlink is privately traded at the moment. So
privately.
So it wouldn't make a difference.
The Scottish, what's that weird Scottish company? Scottish lending or something, and you think they're going to be Scottish mortgage or something, and they own shares in it in
Scottish Mortgage Investment Trust.
Yeah, so they have some SpaceX. I think last time
they do. They have 7.1% of space exploration technologies.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there is some. I must say, the first time I did an interview about Scottish Mortgage, of course, you open the interview and you're like, so this is like they don't do mortgages at all.
It's just the name. We just couldn't name it anything else.
Yeah. So there are some listed and unlisted who have exposure, but it's not, it's going to be it's less than 5% of their portfolio as of the date, which I can't find.
So they also hold 2.7% of ByteDance and 2.7% of red Ferraris.
What are red Ferraris?
No, just normal Ferraris. Okay. It's just the picture's in red. I know you're upset about colors on
Ferraris. I was quite excited. I thought I could buy
just the red ones, not the yellow ones. No, sir, you have to buy the whole company. So yeah, they hold about 7% of SpaceX. Yeah. Is EU Telsat tradable at the moment?
It's got liquidity. It trades in Paris, trades in the US. It's around. It's out there.
Okay,
code is ETL. ETL.
If you guys are looking for an alternative to Starlink, which isn't really listed, perhaps that's something worth considering. I want to get into the gold price in a second, and perhaps we should do Renogen first. Renogen has been on the receiving end of some very colorful comments by a gentleman named Albi Celeris on X. And with reason, of course. I mean, having gone through the numbers he's gone through, he's seen that the business comes from a not so viable position and didn't believe in the vision or the story that the CEO Stefano Morani was selling. And this has been very publicly made aware or been made public knowledge rather. And they finally started producing liquid helium.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I mean, Albie's great and he does good stuff, but the way he was trying to dissect and trash this story was just bogus. I mean, he's like, oh, but the DWARs are only like 31 kilos of helium, and they're promising 75. It's like, dude, you're reading what's not here anyway. Park that aside. Yeah, like helium. Like how many years late? So I had Kiyo Nyama on this morning on my other show, and he reminded us that in 2016 they signed a deal with Afrox to provide helium in 2018.
So we are almost 10 years late.
Yeah, we are very late.
Greater part of 5 years, more than 5, less than 10.
Phase two, when I was at the plant, just a disclaimer, I own some shares and I've been to Virginia. When one of my trips to Virginia, phase 2 was set for completion in 2026. And I was like, yo, look, it is hard doing that sort of thing. Make no mistake about it. It is hard. They are very late. They still can't directly fill the main storage container. They've got to do little ones. That is far from ideal. They still have serious technical challenges. Yeah. And I think that might be linked to their cold box issues that they've had in time. This should have been producing even just it delayed things. It should have been there towards the end of 23. Instead, here we are in 2025. That said, it's a big deal for Renogen. It's a big deal for Stefano. It's a big deal for South Africa. Let's be clear about that.
Do we like them enough to have them on our wall? I know, as you said, both from a disclaimer point of view, both Sai and I have bought some Renogen shares. We've both commented on this in the past.
Yeah,
We've all been frustrated by the lack of helium production. No one's disputing that. Do we like them enough for them to get a spot on our wall just yet? Or do we want them to fix the cold box stuff, to fix everything else, and then we'll like them? The share price has taken the biggest knock. At some point, it was holding steady, probably around the 10, 11 Rand mark. I think when I last looked at it, we were closer to 3 Rand.
It got to 3. It's now 8.28.
Oh, we're back at 8. Okay, so do we like it enough at 8 to add it to the wall, taking into account all of the challenges they've been through and the fact that they still need to raise a lot of capital and that US listing is not happening anytime soon?
No.
No. There we go. That's the honest
I
truth.
love it.
For
and I
now,
hold it, but
for now, it doesn't make the wall of our preferred picks. It's going to go on our avoid section. Maybe they can claw their way out of that. Maybe we'll see improvements from their perspective there. What is also on our wall that we've recently added is Euro Stocks 50. That is, we put it in easy money. I think we put it in like it. We really do like it. We don't think it's yet blue chip, but it is definitely something that we really, really like at the moment. Let's go to the gold price, because that's just $3,000 an ounce. We spoke about this. We had Moshima on the show. I don't even remember when we said it was going to happen. I didn't think it was going to happen last week, but it did.
yeah, suddenly it was Friday morning. Every morning I wake up bright and early. I go have my coffee and smoke in the balcony, and I check how the US did, how the Rand, and how gold. And the US had collapsed on Thursday night. That was fine. No
You were happy with
unexpected.
that.
The Rand was doing what it does at the moment, which is nothing, which is weird. And gold was at 2,999.80. And I'm like, guys, I got a show in 2 hours. I need you to get above 3,000 because I have a headline.
I have a headline.
Man,
There
I
we
hadn't
go.
finished my coffee. There it was, 3,010 cents.
There's your headline. No, I mean, again, a lot of this I don't think has to do with anything other than the risk sentiment that the White House is putting out into global markets, number one. And number two, if you look at the valuations, right? I saw something interesting where someone said that all of the gold that has been mined in the world equates to around 17 trillion US dollars in terms of value at current prices. At the same time, the top 10 companies in the United States equate to about $16 trillion in value. Gold is an actual tradable commodity with a use case. And we're talking all the gold that's been mined, that's also been put into jewelry, that's also been traded, that's sitting in vaults and all of that from central banks. All of the gold that has been mined on the planet up to now is worth a little more than the top 10 US companies. And someone then poses the question, but then should we not be revaluing and re-rating gold to its actual worth? How is it that companies that have effectively an artificial valuation, because that is what it is, it's a numeric value assigned to it based on whether we agree with your financial projections or not, how is that equating to something that has physical value to it that we've been able to
So
articulate
the
over
short
time?
answer is, at $3,000, gold is cheap.
There we go. At $3,000, gold is cheap. You know what? I think I want to get an estimate on where a fair value should be for that commodity.
Yeah, so they do weird stuff. Like you could buy a suit for half a gold coin in Paris in 1422, and you can still buy a suit for half a gold coin in Paris in 1422. But I think that and I appreciate that during that time there's been heads chopped off and wars and Olympic opening ceremonies and all of that sort of stuff. But I got to say, I think that, and I was anti-gold up until sort of pandemic 21. I'm very late to the gold boom. But I don't know that that's a fair way to reflect it. We've got central banks buying again. The US dollar's been weaponized. We've still got people out there. When I did my show, the number of folks who message me and says it's too late to buy gold. And I'm like, you don't have gold? They're like, I don't have gold. I'm like, I don't know if it's too late, but like, I mean, my last buy was 28.65 or so. Admittedly in my wife's name. my wife's last buy, and I manage her account. But I was quite happy to pay 28 something. I mean, gold 4,000. I mean, I thought 2,000 was a crazy number.
Right, and that was the thing. I mean, when we looked at the gold price in the pandemic at 1650, we had never hit 2,000 an ounce. We smashed through 2,000, didn't think about it twice, went straight to 2.5, and then we're just like, okay, now we'll rethink this 2,000 level kind of thing, And even now at 3,000, we tapped 3,000 very briefly. We've seen some retracement. We might come back down.
It's 2,986 at this point.
Yeah, so we might come back down. But the point around the gold price is, if markets are going to be even more uncertain going into the future, then...
And if we've got this geopolitical realignment that is happening
over the next 4 years, potentially.
and maybe potentially longer, maybe shorter, who knows? But if that is playing out, I mean, I think gold can weaken down to 2,800. That certainly is an easy enough place. So, and if you didn't buy above 3,000, you can now buy for 2,986. But I think there's still legs in gold.
For those that are looking to see what a gold chart looks like, I'll give you a free crash course on that. It's Sai's favorite chart, bottom left, top right. That's where we're going to leave the show. That's exactly the note we're going to leave the show on. Thanks, folks, for tuning in. If you've missed the conversations, you know exactly where to catch up on them. Before we leave, we don't leave you without an unfiltered opinion. This week's one, particularly interesting. Sai, what is it?
Oh, so when you drive to Durban, I don't know about other roads, they've got those timed cameras where they do average speed prosecution.
Yes.
Which is when you drive a Roadster, coupe.
Horrible things in life.
You need to be a smoker. So as you're coming along and you see the camera, because you see it a little way, pull over, have a little cigarette, walk around the car. It's good for your legs. It's bad for your lungs. It's great for your bank account.
It's good for your legs, it's bad for your lungs, and it's great for your bank account. We'll leave the conversation there. Until next time, investing isn't hard. Just try it.